British Prime Minister Theresa May has suffered 3 Brexit defeats in the House of Commons ahead of key Brexit vote. May was found in contempt of Parliament for issuing a summary and not the government's full legal advice on the Brexit deal. The British legislators also backed calls for the House to have a say in what happens if May's Brexit deal is rejected next Tuesday. The middleman in the 3,600 crore AgustaWestland VVIP chopper case, Christian Michel, has been brought to India. Michel has been taken into custody by India's Central Bureau of Investigation. Christian Michel is a British citizen. He was extradited by the UAE. India made the extradition request in 2017 based on the investigation conducted by India's Enforcement Directorate and the CBI. The US has warned Russia that it would withdraw from the Cold War era nuclear arms treaty if Moscow does not comply with the core clauses. The US has given Russia an ultimatum of 60 days. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo claimed that Russia has developed multiple battalions of the SSC-8 missiles. Pompeo added that the range of the cruise missile is a direct menace to Europe. The nuclear arms treaty was signed in 1987 and limits mid-range nuclear arms. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said that this is Russia's last chance to save the INF or the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. NATO urged Russia to comply with the treaty urgently, adding that NATO seeks dialogue with Russia and not confrontation. NATO chief, however, warned that the world must start preparing for a situation where the treaty is resolved. The commander of Ukrainian forces has claimed that Russia has been ramping up its forces near the Ukrainian border and now poses the greatest military threat since 2014. In an interview, General Viktor Musenko claimed that the presence of Russian T-62M tanks have increased drastically. He said that the numbers of tanks along the border has more than doubled within 2 weeks, and now there are at least 250 Russian tanks that are stationed 18 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The director of the US Central Intelligence Agency, Gina Haspel, briefed senators on the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. A small group of senators who attended the briefing included the chairman and the ranking senators of the key national security committees. The US legislators have been considering punishing Saudi Arabia over the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden has stoked speculation that he may run for the White House in 2020. Biden said that he believes he is the most qualified person to be the president. He added that they would have to consult with his family before deciding whether to take on Donald Trump 2 years from now. Biden made the remarks while in Montana during his book tour. The parents of missing American journalist Austin Tice has appealed to the US and Syria to work together to find their son. Tice went missing 6 years ago. He was 31 years old and was reportedly detained at a checkpoint in Damascus while reporting on the uprising against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. A week after Tice disappeared, a video was posted online that showed him in custody of armed men. There has been no information on Tice since then. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation has offered a reward of $1 million for information that leads of Tice's safe return. The U.S. border guards have claimed that there has been a slight increase in the number of families entering California illegally. They claim the illegal migration has risen since the caravan of Central American migrants arrived in Mexico 2 weeks ago. These have been instances of migrants scaling the border fence between Tijuana and California. Some of migrants, on the other hand, claim that they want to enter the U.S. legally and apply for work permits. And most of these Central American migrants have been on the road for over 7 weeks now. The U.S. president has threatened to slap more tariffs on China if the efforts to strike a fair fails. Over a series of tweets, Trump stressed that he is a tariff man, and whenever people come to quote-unquote raid the wealth of America, he will make them pay for the privilege of doing so. The US president wrote that he's open to striking a fair deal with China, but the idea was to make America rich and great again. US President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump visited the mourning family of former President George H.W. Bush at the Blair House. The property, located near the White House, is the official guest house for US presidents. The Trumps were warmly greeted by former President George W. Bush and his wife Laura. The US president will be attending Bush's state funeral today. Trump, however, is not expected to speak. The Bush 4141 is being prepared to carry the casket of the former President George H.W. Bush from Houston to College Station in Texas. The locomotive has been painted the colors of the Air Force One plane used during Bush's presidency. It bears a number 4141 in honor of the 41st president. The casket will be in a car with plexiglass windows to allow people to see during the trip. The train will take about 2.5 hours to cover the distance of 70 miles distance. Thousands from various walks of life came by the Capitol Hill on Tuesday to pay their respects to former President George H.W. Bush. The late president's grandson, Billy Bush, and his family were seen standing by his casket. Several politicians, too, were seen at the Capitol Hill, including former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, Senator Teny Hoyer, and Republican Duchess Ruppersberg. And several sports persons also came by the Capitol, including footballer Peyton Manning, golfer Phil Mickelson, and basketball coach Mike as well. Chinese President Xi Jinping is on a one-day state visit to Portugal. The Chinese premier was accorded full military honors upon his arrival in Lisbon. Xi was greeted by his Portuguese counterpart, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa. Portugal is hopeful that China will invest heavily in the country's biggest Atlantic port and help expand the national Portuguese energy company overseas.
双方将保持高层交往。
Speaking at COP24 in Katowice, 15-year-old Swedish activist Greta Thunberg said that children should get angry about countries not doing enough to avert climate change. Thunberg said that children should make their voices heard and make all the generations accountable for climate change. She said that it is not fair for children to live in a future damaged by the wrongdoings of their elders and clean up their mess. The young activist and the world is now facing an existential crisis as well. Participants of peace talks aimed at ending Yemen's civil war have begun arriving in Stockholm. Houthi rebels were seen flying in from Yemen's rebel-held capital Sana'a. They agreed to attend the event only after safe travel was guaranteed to them. Other rebel delegates too are expected to travel to Sweden from Oman. The peace talks will also be attended by Yemen's internationally recognized government. Ethiopian police have taken into custody 3 Indian officials of infrastructure company ILNFS over non-payment of taxes and workers' salaries. This comes after 7 Indian workers of ILNFS transportation network were taken hostage at 3 of its sites in Ethiopia by local staff. ILNFS is under massive debt. As October 2018, the figure stood at almost 95,000 crores. India and the UAE have signed a currency swap agreement. This will enable businesses from both countries to trade in each other's currencies instead of the dollar or any other international currency. The agreement was signed after the 12th India-UAE Joint Commission meeting in Abu Dhabi. The meeting was co-chaired by Indian External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and UAE's Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The trade between India and UAE stood at $52 billion in 2017. Volkswagen chief executive said that the German automaker was building an alliance with Ford Motor and it might use its plants in US to build cars. Volkswagen CEO Albert Duchess's comments come after his meeting with senior White House officials. He said that his company is looking to build a global automotive alliance which would strengthen the American automotive industry. Volkswagen already has an assembly plant in Tennessee and is considering building a second plant in the United States. A letter by Albert Einstein has fetched a whopping $2.8 million at an auction in New York. The handwritten letter dates back to 1954. It is addressed to philosopher Eric Gutkind and is regarded as a key manuscript in the debate over science and religion. This is Einstein's earliest statements of his views on the universal search for the meaning of life. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge hosted a Christmas party for the families of British service personnel who were posted overseas. William and Kate invited the families to Kensington Palace. There were a number of activities for children, including stocking, decorating, cracker making and snow globe decorating. In a speech, the Duchess of Cambridge acknowledged the sacrifice made by the families of the armed forces. Female inmates of a Brazil prison took part in jail's annual beauty contest on Tuesday this year. From hairdressing to makeup to wardrobe, there was everything that made the event look like any other beauty contest. This year's winner was a 25-year-old woman who was jailed 8 years ago on charges of murder. The jail authorities claimed that the event encouraged this esteem of the prisoners and also helps in fighting idleness.